She carried no broomstick, no pointed hat, no pact with any devil. She carried yarrow in her apron pocket, a worn Bible perhaps, iron nails, salt, things that hummed with older magic than any priest could name. In every village across the land, she was there. The woman you called for when fever wouldn't break, the hands that caught your child as they entered the world, the one who knew which herb to brew for a troubled heart, which knot to tie to find what was lost. They called her many things: wise woman, blesser, bone setter, cunning folk. She healed, she blessed, she protected. When the priest's prayers felt too far away, she was close. She was necessary. More trusted than doctors, sometimes more needed than God. She worked with what she had: herbs, psalms, old rhymes, iron, salt, thread, and things no one could quite name. She stood at the threshold between this world and the next, between illness and health, between despair and hope. She was not a witch, not as we've come to fear the word. She was the woman who kept the village breathing, until the day that they decided that was dangerous, until necessity became threat. This is not a fairy tale. This is the story of thousands of real lives. And today we're walking into that shadow, when the wise woman became the witch and the fire began to burn.
Tonight we begin at the beginning, before witches were feared, before broomsticks and bonfires, before the word witch carried the weight of death. There were the cunning folk, the ones who knew which roots eased pain, which leaves closed wounds, which words soothed fear when medicine ran out. This is their story. Welcome, wanderer.
And thank you for joining us on the path.
This is the Roaming Raven podcast.
A place for old stories, whispered magic, and the folklore that still clings to the hedgerows.
Each week we'll be guiding you through a tale drawn from witchcraft, folklore, and folk belief.
Stories of cunning folk and wise women, of charms and curses, of herbs that heal and words that bind.
We'll explore the legends themselves,
and then wander deeper into what they meant to the people who told them.
their remedies, their rituals, their fears and hopes, and the strange, beautiful ways they made sense of the world.
These are not just stories of magic. They're stories of survival, of knowledge passed quietly from hand to hand, of power found in plants, in ritual, and in the spoken word.
So make yourself comfortable, light a candle, pour a cup of tea, or walk with us beneath the trees.
This is folklore for the witchy, history for the curious, and a path for anyone who feels called by the old ways.
We are your hosts, Paula and Tracy, and this
is the Roaming Raven podcast.
Can you hear the wings beat? Can you hear the sound? Lifting up the heavy hearts from the frozen ground. It's the folklore of the future. It's the history of now. Taking back the scepter and the iron-willed vow. Slower now, the mist rolls in. The bird begins to sing of every hidden, holy, and forgotten thing.
The Woman of the Hedges. In a low valley, cupped between dark woods and grey hills, there lay a village called Brambleford. The river there ran slow and brown, thick with reeds and dragonflies. The fields were thin and stony, and winters were long. The people lived close to the land, and closer still to fear, for sickness came easily, and death came often. At the far edge of Brambleford, beyond the last tilled field, and just before the forest swallowed the light, stood a crooked cottage. It had once been whitewashed, but now it wore the green of moss and the silver of lichen. A small garden clung to its walls, fennel, rue, yarrow, lavender and thyme planted not in neat rows, but where they seemed happiest. The woman who lived there was called Alice. Some said she'd been born in the village. Some said she had come from the forest itself. Some said she had walked roads no one remembered, but everyone knew her hands. They knew them because those hands had set broken bones, drawn fever from children's skin, and closed the eyes of the dying with gentleness. Each dawn Alice walked the hedgerows. She carried a basket woven from willow and a small iron knife tied at her belt. She never took more than a third of any plant. She whispered thanks. She left bread for the spirits of the place. From the ditch she took mugwort. From the wall she took thyme. From the sunlit field she took yarrow. And from the river bank she took valerian. When she returned, she hung them in the rafters and brewed them into dark bitter teas. She crushed leaves for poultices and simmered roots into syrups thick with honey. She wrote charms on scraps of parchment. For a bleeding wound, for a restless child, for a cow that will not give milk, for dreams that would not rest, and people came. In the night, wrapped in cloaks. In the dawn, with infants in arms. In the afternoon, pretending to pass by. She asked no payment but eggs, thread or honey. One autumn, sickness came. It was not like other fevers. It bloomed red on the skin and left black marks on the tongue. Children were struck first, then the old. The priest rang bells, the men dug graves, the mothers prayed, and then they came to Alice. She boiled garlic with vinegar and honey. She steeped yarrow and elderflower. She bathed children in water warmed with thyme and ash. She tied red thread to their wrists and whispered, "Out fire in frost, out sickness in strength, out pain in peace." And some lived. Enough that the village noticed. Enough that the village grew afraid, because when God did not answer, and the herbs did, something felt wrong. A woman named Merrow began to whisper, "She walks too easily with death. She knows who will die. She speaks to things in the woods." The priest warned from the pulpit, "Old remedies lead to old sins." Soon mothers crossed themselves after leaving her door. One night Alice dreamed of ravens. They stood on her window-sill, tapping with beaks of bone. In the dream her garden burned. She woke before dawn and packed her basket. She left behind her hearth, her bed, her garden and her charms. By sunrise, the cottage was empty. Years later, children were warned, "Do not go to the hedges alone. The witch lives there still." And the woman who healed them became the thing they feared.
So there's Alice, exhausted from healing the sick, sleeping deeply, and the ravens come to her in a dream. They warn her to leave, or the fire will take her. A warning from the void. But why ravens? Why do these gorgeous black birds appear so often as messengers between worlds?
Ooh, there are some fascinating stories behind this. Do you want to start with the Norse one? That's got to be my favourite.
Yep, absolutely. Tell me about Odin's ravens.
So the most powerful association comes from Norse mythology. The All-Father Odin, god of wisdom, magic and death, kept two ravens named Hugin and Munnin. Their names mean thought and memory. Every dawn he would send them flying across the entire world, and at dinner time they would return to perch on his shoulders and whisper in his ear everything they had seen and heard.
So they were literally his eyes and his ears, his intelligence network.
Exactly. Odin was so linked to these birds that he was called Hrafnagruz, the raven god, in our story. The ravens act as Odin's wood. They see what is coming and they carry that vital information to someone who needs it.
Ah, that's beautiful. But there's a darker thread too, right?
Yeah, and this one really resonates with the danger Alice faces in our story. In Greek mythology, the god Apollo had a white raven as a spy. He sent it to watch over his lover, Coronis. When the raven returned and truthfully reported that Coronis had been unfaithful, Apollo flew into such a rage that he scorched the raven's feathers black, cursing all ravens to that colour forever.
Oh, naughty Coronis. And poor Raven. The poor Raven's punished just for telling the truth.
Exactly. The raven becomes the bearer of uncomfortable truth and suffers for it. In our story, Alice's ravens are also bearers of a hard truth. Danger is imminent. They risk bringing the message anyway.
That's such a powerful parallel. And it makes me think of the Tower of London ravens. That's another layer, isn't it?
Yes, the legend of the Tower of London states that if the ravens ever leave, the kingdom will fall. King Charles II, after being warned by a soothsayer...
A what?
A soothsayer. It's someone who makes predictions of the future, usually on the basis of special knowledge, decreed that at least 6 ravens must always stay. They're messengers of prophecy, their presence a sign of safety, their absence an omen of doom.
Ooh, uh-oh. So, in our tale, the ravens are fulfilling that very role. Their warnings a chance for Alice to escape from her own coming disaster.
Precisely. And ultimately, the raven sits at the crossroads of life and death. They're carrion birds seen on battlefields and at execution sites. This gave them a reputation as psychopomps, creatures that guide souls between the world of the living and the dead.
Oh, I love that word, psychopomps. So, because they move between realms, they're perfectly suited to carry messengers from the divine or from our own subconscious into our waking minds.
Yes. So when the ravens visit Alice in a dream, they're not just birds, they are thought and memory, bringing hard-worn intelligence. They are the scorched bearers of truth, willing to risk punishment to speak. They are the guardians of the tower, warning of the fall to come, and they are the guides between worlds, reaching out from the spirit realm to save a life.
They saw the danger and they called out.
And she listened. That's the part that matters.
Softly now let the vision clear. There is no room
So let's step back for a moment and really try and sit with what life was like back then. What do you think it was like?
Well, imagine a world without understanding of germs, antibiotics or hospitals. A world where children often died, injuries festered and childbirth could be deadly.
Crikey, it must have been terrifying.
Yeah, and in such a world people needed meaning. They had to make sense of what was happening all around them. Pain, sickness and misfortune. They believed that illness had intention, that pain had purpose and that misfortune had cause. And in that belief they found the first seeds of control.
So this is where the Cunning folks' power truly lay, not just in their herbs or their charms.
No, it was in their ability to give shape to fear.
That's a good way of putting it. So when we look at charms or rituals or protective herbs, were they just superstition?
No, not at all. They were practical logic. Think about it. If sickness comes from the outside, if danger lurks unseen, then you need something to stand between you and it. A boundary, a ward, a whispered word, a red thread, a poppet, a witch bottle.
So these acts gave people control in a world that, frankly, must have felt uncontrollable.
Yeah, exactly. And they brought comfort when there was otherwise none.
But where did all this come from? I mean, who sat down and decided that salt protects this or that, or a whispered word heals?
That's the fascinating part. Rituals, charms, whispered words, they come from fear, from illness, from death, from the unknown even. And early humans discovered something profound. Repetition calms the mind. Symbols give meaning. Words create focus.
So it's almost like we taught ourselves how to cope.
Yeah, to whisper a phrase, to fold a paper, to trace a circle, is to make a moment sacred. It tells the body and the mind, this is important, pay attention.
And objects too, right? They gave ideas a form.
Absolutely. Salt preserved, iron defended, thread bound, fire transformed. Ritual made the invisible visible. It gave chaos a shape, fear a boundary, and uncertainty a kind of order.
This isn't magic versus science. This is the human mind meeting an uncertain world and finding a way to cope or to heal or to hope.
And here's the thing that gets me. Even today, when we light a candle, tie a thread or speak a charm, we are continuing that ancient act, giving our intentions, our hopes and our protections a form we can see, feel and trust.
So the Cunning folk understood something that psychology is now confirming.
They did. What we believe shapes what we feel, and what we ritualise becomes real to us.
They weren't foolish, were they?
No, they really weren't. They were the first to map the terrain between the outer world of danger and the inner world of meaning.
And we walk that same terrain still. So, we've talked about why people needed the Cunning folk, but let's dig into the actual tools they used. What about the charms? What were they really?
Okay, so charms were the words that healed when herbs alone weren't enough. They worked through rhythm, repetition, and the deep belief of the one speaking them. Some charms were written on paper, folded 3 times, wrapped in cloth and carried close to the body, in a pocket under a pillow, tucked into a satchel.
So they were like spoken medicine? Do we know what they actually sounded like though?
Yeah, exactly. One charm for pain went like this: out pain in peace, out ache in ease, by leaf and bone be whole again. But charms weren't just words. They could be simple, everyday objects, imbued with meaning. Red thread tied to a wrist, a cradle, or even a cow to protect and mark boundaries. Iron placed above doors or under beds to ward off harm. Salt sprinkled in corners to create a circle of safety.
Isn't it fascinating how ordinary all of these things are? Thread, iron, salt. They're things that people already had. So these actions weren't just superstition.
No, and that's the crucial point. They made invisible fear visible. They created boundaries between harm and home, between sickness and safety. Through charms, the cunning folk gave form to hope, protection and courage. They turned ordinary objects and words into tools of magic and care.
You know, this reminds me of something I came across recently. Agatha Christie, of all people. In the story The Egyptian Adventure, Poirot, the Belgian detective, he acknowledges the tremendous power of superstition, and he says, once it's firmly established that a series of deaths are supernatural, and one could almost stab a man in broad daylight, and it would still be put down to the curse. So strongly is the instinct of the supernatural implanted in the human race.
That's brilliant. And it's so true. Once belief takes hold, it shapes everything. Which brings me to one of my favourite examples of this, the witch bottle.
Ooh, tell me about the witch bottles. I've heard the term, but I've really never understood what they are.
A witch bottle was more than just a jar. It was a small secret guardian buried beneath the hearth, tucked under a doorstep or hidden in the corner of a home. And what was inside mattered enormously. You might find hair or nail clippings, pieces of the person being protected, pins or thorns for sharpness to repel harm, vinegar or urine to confuse or repel unwanted spirits, protective herbs like rosemary or yarrow for health, strength and warding.
So the purpose was to trap something?
Exactly. To trap curses, confuse spirits and turn harm back towards its source. A witch bottle was protection in a bottle, a quiet hidden spell, working tirelessly beneath the floorboards while the household slept.
Okay, so here's the $1 million question. Do they actually work? Do charms really have magical power?
Not in the way the stories tell us, not as Hollywood would have it.
But
rituals, words, repeated actions, they do something real. They lower fear, calm the body and focus belief. And here's where psychology meets magic. Belief itself releases chemicals in the brain, hormones that reduce pain and stress. We know for a fact less stress means the body heals more effectively.
of course, so when the cunning folk combined herbs and words,
they were doing something profound. The herb healed the body, the charm healed the fear.
Yeah, that is real. That's powerful, but it's also very human.
And that's why we're still lighting candles and speaking intentions today. We're not so different from them.
In the shadow of the elder tree, where the secrets of the earth run free, a beat of wings in the velvet night, turning darkness into ancient light.
So, we've set the scene, we've met Alice, but I think it's time we actually wandered into her garden. What do you think we'd have found growing there?
Oh, this is my favourite part. Let's walk through it together. The scent of herbs would be hanging thick in the air, and each plant carried its own story, its own magic. I've picked out 3 from the story to focus on today.
I can almost smell them. Which one first?
Okay, so let's start with yarrow. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the The actual name.
I think it's Achillea millefolium, but I might be
you're
wrong.
Showing off now. Okay. Yarrow. So yeah, yarrow, that one.
Yarrow. That's the one with the feathery leaves and the clusters of pretty little white flowers, right?
That's it. And it was one of the most treasured herbs of the Cunning folk. Traditionally, they'd apply it as a poultice to stop bleeding, brew it in teas for pain relief and fever, and sometimes even strew it on the floor to protect a household from harm.
So it was both practical and protective. I love that. And what about the folklore attached to it?
So much. It was known as soldier's woundwort because it was said to staunch the flow of blood in battle. People believed it brought courage and protection, and interestingly it was associated with divination too. Tossing yarrow stalks was later used in the Chinese Qing tradition.
And Chinese I Ching. Okay, what about today? Do we still use it?
Absolutely. Modern herbalists use it as a mild anti-inflammatory and for menstrual cramps. You'll find it brewed as tea or tincture, or even used dried in baths for minor cuts.
Fascinating. Okay, what's next in Alice's garden?
Mugwort. Again.
Artemisia
Yeah.
vulgaris.
See? You're my expert. This one has silvery leaves and a bittersweet scent. It was considered sacred to women and dreamers alike.
Dreamers. That immediately makes me think it's connected to the unconscious, to nighttime.
Exactly. Traditionally, it was burned as incense to enhance dreams, steeped in tea to ease menstrual discomfort, and carried in a pouch for safe travel and protection.
So it's a protector too, but in a different way to yarrow.
Yeah. Yarrow protects the body in battle. Mugwort protects the spirit while you sleep. It was called the dream herb or witch's herb. People believed it protected against evil spirits during the night. They'd hang it over doorways to guard the home.
I love that image, mugwort hanging above your door as you drift off. So do we still work with it today?
We do. It's used in herbal teas for digestion and relaxation. In traditional Chinese medicine, they use it in moxibustion, burning it near specific points on the body. And yes, many modern witches still place dried mugwort under their pillows for dream work.
That feels like such a direct line from Alice's time to ours. Okay, time for the third herb.
Okay, let's see if you know this one. Thyme.
Ooh, Thymus vulgaris.
Yeah. Such small fragrant leaves but packed with meaning.
Yeah, thyme I knew from cooking. I've got lots of it in my garden. But I sense there's more to it than that.
So much more. It's long been linked with courage, healing and emotional strength. Traditionally, they'd brew it in teas for coughs, chest infections or nervousness. They'd use it in baths to promote bravery or confidence, and carry it in pouches as a charm for courage.
Courage. That keeps coming up, doesn't it? In a world so full of danger, I guess you'd need all the courage you could get.
Yeah. It symbolised courage and purification in medieval Europe. People placed it under pillows for restful sleep and to ward off nightmares. And here's a beautiful image. Knights were said to bathe in thyme water before battle to gain bravery.
Well, darling, I think that rather depends on what the night looks like. But anyway, so a knight, the night before battle, steeping in thyme water, not just preparing his body, but his spirit too.
And we still use it today. Thyme tea is used for respiratory support and mild anxiety. The essential oil is popular in aromatherapy for focus and mental clarity.
Cool. So these three herbs, yarrow, mugwort and thyme, they're not just plants from a story. They're still here, still working, still protecting, still healing.
They are. Alice's garden is still growing. We just have to know where to look.
But here's the thing about the Cunning folk. They never really left. Walk into any therapist's room today and you'll find a modern version of the old wise one. Someone who holds space for your wounds, who helps you name what haunts you, who offers you not a potion, but a question that slowly, gently heals. Visit the herbalist and you'll find the same knowing hands, the same jars of dried leaves, the same reverence for plants that remember what we've forgotten. They still brew the same remedy, yarrow for fever, chamomile for rest, as if the centuries between them and the village wise women were only a breath. And us? We still build our own rituals. The bath we take by candlelight, salt dissolving in warm water, that's a ritual bath. The words we spill onto paper when no one's watching, untangling the knot of our own hearts, that's charm work, old as writing itself. Every intention we set, every candle we light, every moment we pause to honour a threshold, a feeling, a quiet hope. We are being cunning folk, for ourselves, for the ones we love. We no longer walk to the village wise woman's cottage, but her wisdom walks with us. In every act of care, in every small sacred thing we do to mend what's broken, bless what's tender, and keep the darkness at bay. The cunning folk are still here. We are them.
The raven knows the way through the night and through the day, roaming home, roaming home.
If you enjoyed this show, please consider giving us a positive review on whatever platform you're listening on. Thank you to Georgia Rolls for our wonderful artwork, and to Psych Witch, who wrote and produced our music. Find more of her lovely sounds on Spotify. This podcast has been produced by Roaming Raven.
I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Next week, come and join us to find out about the Hedge Witch. If you want to get in touch, you can find us on www.roamingraven.co.uk or email us at roamingravenscircle@gmail.com. We're on TikTok at roaming_raven or on Instagram at roamingraven2025, and we have a Facebook group, Roaming Raven Podcast.
Roaming through the hills.